What is mesothelioma? Mesothelioma is a cancer that occurs generally in two places in the body. One is the lining of the lung called the pleura, and the other is the lining of the stomach called the peritoneum. Mesothelioma is a unique cancer in that it has only one known cause, exposure to asbestos. It's also unique in that it's very aggressive. Most people who have mesothelioma die within 12 months of diagnosis. Some can live longer than that, 18, 24 months, but there is no cure for mesothelioma. The symptoms of mesothelioma are generally shortness of breath, pain in the chest and back area. Most people who have mesothelioma, when they go to the doctor, they're found to have fluid in the lung or the stomach area. One of the things that makes mesothelioma unique as opposed to lung cancer or stomach cancer is that it occurs in the lining of the organs, like the lung and the stomach. It doesn't occur inside the lung or inside the stomach. And because of that, as the tumor grows, it's particularly painful. The lining of the lung and the lining of the stomach have some of the most neurological endings in the body, and as the tumor starts to grow into the nerve endings and into the neurological spaces there, it is extremely painful. So most people, when they go to the doctor, they're complaining of shortness of breath, pain in the chest and back area, fatigue, and coughing. In the stomach area, they may be complaining of stomach symptoms and pain in the stomach area, pain in the lower back. The prognosis for mesothelioma is very poor. It is, most people succumb to mesothelioma in about 12 months. With treatment, people can live longer than that, 18 months or 24 months. But unlike many types of cancer, there is no cure, and it doesn't respond well to most treatments that are provided. The main treatments that are provided for mesothelioma are chemotherapy, surgery, and sometimes radiation. But all of them are focused on extending a person's life. They're not going to cure the disease, and they're not going to have the cancer go into remission. Mesothelioma is a very, very painful cancer, and it's very, very aggressive, and it tends to progress within the body very quickly and cause a tremendous amount of pain as it does progress. One of the tragedies about mesothelioma is that it could have been avoided. In fact, the means for avoiding exposure to asbestos have been known back to at least 1920, and they're pretty simple. They all revolve around controlling dust and breathing and inhaling dust. And the methods for that have been known for a very long time, giving people dust protection like masks, using steps to control dust like ventilation or wetting down the dust so the dust doesn't go into the air, and most importantly, giving people warnings so that they know that they may be exposed to asbestos and that asbestos can cause cancers like lung cancer and mesothelioma. This was a completely avoidable public health tragedy, and the companies that sold asbestos without warnings and without disclosing what they knew about it need to be held accountable. Most of the people that we represent work in certain types of industries. They're plumbers, boiler makers, they work in factories like paper mills, industrial settings, sites where foundries and steel mills where products were cast and made. But one of the things that has developed in the area of mesothelioma and lung cancer is that people are often exposed to asbestos in ways that are unique to a very particular industry or in ways that they're not even aware of. We've represented dentists, veterinarians, doctors, school teachers, people who worked in laboratories. We've represented people who've worked in all sorts of factories making plastics, molding, and mesothelioma can be caused by very small amounts of asbestos exposure. So it's not uncommon, for example, for us to represent someone like a dentist who may have used asbestos in molding fillings for people's teeth. They used a small amount to cast the mold, but it was enough to cause mesothelioma. So we always encourage people, even if they didn't work in one of the typical industries that we represent, like plumbing or boiler making or pipe fitting or in a factory, that they contact us and let us take a history from them and try to figure out how they were exposed to asbestos. If you have mesothelioma, you were exposed to asbestos, and part of our job is to help figure out how that occurred. We also represent a lot of individuals who served in the Navy. The Navy was one of the primary sources of asbestos exposure in the United States. Many seamen who served on ships and worked in the engine and boiler spaces of the ships, where there were power plants and boilers and turbines and a lot of steam, were exposed to asbestos, and many of our clients served our country in the Navy and the other branches of military. When Belluck & Fox files lawsuits, we generally file two claims on behalf of our clients. One is on behalf of the client themselves for the pain and suffering that they're going to have as a result of being diagnosed with mesothelioma. That includes the physical pain that someone has from the disease as the cancer grows, the shortness of breath, the difficulty exerting themselves, and the suffering part, the change in your life, the fact that you can't do the activities that you used to do, the impact it has on your relationships with your families and your friends, that you can't engage in the same activities that you used to engage in, and those are all part of the client's personal injury claim. We also, if the person is married, file a claim on behalf of their spouse, because any disease like mesothelioma that causes a dramatic change in your life and is ultimately going to be fatal not only affects you, it affects your family members. It affects your spouse, your children, your siblings, if they're still alive, your parents, and we file a claim on behalf of the spouse to protect their rights as well as yours. If your loved one has already passed away from mesothelioma, we file what's known as a wrongful death lawsuit. In that type of lawsuit, what we're doing is asking the companies that exposed your loved one to asbestos to compensate you and your family for the death that occurred due to asbestos exposure. And that's the main difference between a personal injury claim and a wrongful death claim. The personal injury claim is filed while the person with mesothelioma or lung cancer is still alive. The wrongful death claim is filed after they passed away. But both have the same goal, which is to protect your family and make sure that their ability to provide for themselves and the costs associated with this disease are not borne by them, but paid for by the companies that caused this.